Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being here today. Despite the hot weather, it's nice to see so many people that are interested in politics, municipal politics, and I appreciate you being here. So thank you very much. I'll call this meeting to order at 9:30 a.m. and I will confirm that all members of council, as well as the municipal clerk, are present. I'll read the territorial land acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge the Township of Allen-McCullough is located on the Mississauga-Neshinimbic territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga-Neshinimbic. The Township of Allen-McCullough respectively acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. The approval of the agenda. The motion reads that the agenda for the municipal planning / regular council meeting held on June 24th, 2025 be approved. If I get a move in a second. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Motion is carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Anybody have any interest to declare? Seeing none, that'll be noted. And now we're going to move to the Land Division Committee or Committee of Adjustments meeting. So I'll take a motion that the Council of the Township of Allen-McCullough, being the Land Division Committee and Committee of Adjustment, move to the Land Division Committee of Adjustment meeting today at 9:32 a.m. I can move in a second. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move on to the green sheets. So this is our Land Division / Committee of Adjustment meeting today for June 24th, 2025. I will call the meeting to order at 9:33 and confirm that we have a quorum of council here, as actually all members of council are present, as well as the secretary treasurer. Good morning, Tracy. I'll call the meeting to order at 9:35 a.m. Territorial land acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge the Township of Allen-McCullough is located on the Mississauga-Neshinimbic territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga-Neshinimbic. The Township of Allen-McCullough respectively acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Moving on to the agenda, that the agenda for the Committee of Adjustments / Land Division Committee meeting held on June 24th, 2025 be approved. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Booth. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Seeing none, we'll note that in the minutes. Approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of Committee of Adjustment Land Division meeting for May 27th, 2025. It is recommended that the Committee of Adjustment Land Division Committee of the Corporation of the Township of Allen-McCullough enact as follows. That the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment Land Division Committee meeting held on May 27th, 2025 be approved. Can I get a move in a second? Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Councillor Booth. Are there any amendments or changes that your council request? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. We're going to move on to consent applications, and we have an application for Joan and Jim Williams AH 13, 2023, PLN 202535, application for consent for Joan and Jim Williams. AH 13, 2023, for June 24th, 2025. Madam Planner, please go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. The application H13/2023 by Joan and Jim Williams is for our residential block. We are doing approval of the application subject to the typical conditions, and in addition to to address the lot size for that proposal. The lot is close to 0.9 hectares, and the application was previously on 23. The applicant had considered the proposed lot location based on comments received from their initial application from stipulated departments and agencies. The original location was close to and partially within evaluated wetlands. So the lot location was moved from the west side of the subject lands to the east side. The center lot will have a frontage of 100 meters and a depth of 9 meters. And the retained lot line area is 53 hectares. The subject property is located at 46 Church Road. There is a hybrid corridor located at the very northern limit, which are not affected. Within some limits, there's a pipeline within the northern limit. Proposal to reach there's two areas of the whole creek and over the flatland, which is the flatland. Within the property, the well on the lot. In residential dwelling on site. And the property is designated rural environmental protection and environmental protection. And the proposed lot is entirely the PPL recognized lot pollution in rural areas, provided they are accommodated with private services and are with appropriate infrastructure. PPL requires the protection of natural features for long term. 20 meters from very appointments are not permitted in the great operation resources. And due to the option of the law to wetlands and water courses that meets criteria for evaluating archaeological potential. So archaeological assessments states law and shall be directed outside of hazardous land, other to wetland for water located outside of those areas. The proposal is consistent with the PPS. The county's official plan designates the property as rural environmental protection, and that is the rural areas of the support creation. And the township's official plan and designates rural environmental protection. And the water is within that rural designation, which is supportive of rural law creation for us. Their section 4.2, the official plan requires a lot of on your own maintained road. That's noted. And section 4.5.12 and 8.6 requires permission of the EIS for proposals within 120 meters of wetlands. And as noted, it is the property is currently zoned special rural 124. Schedule A of the zoning bylaw. And there are zoned, areas of provincially significant wetland and environmentally sensitive areas. The zone, the rural, special rural development permits a wide range of including single detached dwellings with lot area of 5 hectares or 12.36 acres. Based on the minimum lot area, the proposed lot requires a rezoning for conforming, like to a rural residential zone. A number of press agencies were circulated. No significant were identified. Northumberland County requires a sewage system permit for the dwelling. There were no objections from the county. They did make note of the need for the archaeological assessment. Hydro One has commented about the location of the lot in proximity to the hydro corridor. They advise that the placement of structures and facilities within the corridor is prohibited. The owner must make arrangements with Hydro One for lot grading and drainage and proposed uses in the corridor. The cost of relocating any services that may be necessary would be at the cost of the developer. Lower Trent had no objections and no comments were received from the balance of the circulated agencies. Notice of the application was circulated to all property owners within 60 meters of the property on June 4th and signs were posted. One phone call was received for clarification on the lot location. The proposed severed and retained lots are located in the rural part of the municipality and are serviced with a year-round maintained road. And it's situated to avoid natural heritage features. The zoning bylaw amendment was noted, and the proposal is in conformity with the PPS and consistent with the township and county's official plan. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Any questions or comments from members of council? Go ahead, Councilor Ainsworth.
For you, Mayor, I'm just looking at the one photo here, and I just want clarification because the property is the property within 300 meters of the first stream that's in the yellow area.
Yeah. I did a measurement and it's just about 300 meters from there.
And part of the report talked about moving that outside the 300 meters. Would that feasible for him to do that?
So on this sketch here, the original lot was in this vicinity.
Yeah.
So they've relocated over into this area.
Okay.
So they're well away from those wetlands that were looked at previously.
So they're outside the 300 meters?
Yeah.
So do they still have to do the archaeological
Or
assessment?
sorry, oh, I thought you were talking about national heritage, apologies. No, there is the requirement for archaeological assessment. It's outside of the 120 meters for the wetland, apologies. It is close enough to meet the requirement for archaeological assessment.
Thanks.
Chrissy, I noticed in another section of today's agenda, you mentioned Bill 17. And I believe it took royal assent or it was passed on June 5th. It doesn't matter. Is this being affected, this application at all by that?
This application is not affected, but you'll notice in the recommendations, we did not require a development charge payment where the Development Charges Act was updated to require payment for residential uses at the time of building permits where it permits occupancy. So I'll touch on that later in the council agenda.
So this one is affected then? This one? Oh,
No, and I don't expect any of our applications to be affected.
but the payment for the development charges, that is normally put in now, correct?
Correct. So that'll be collected through the building permit process now.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. I'll read the resolution. That application AH 13-2023 by Joan and Jim Williams to sever a parcel for a vacant rural residential lot in concession 3 part lot 1 and 2 and RP 39R3428 parts 3 to part to 5 part 2. Geographically in the township of Haldeman is approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, in addition to the registered survey, a geo-referenced DWG file of the survey be provided to it in a format satisfactory to the township and Northumberland County. That a draft transfer certificate of official for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. That the tax account for the subject property be paid up to date. Prior to any site alteration or ground disturbing activities, an archaeological assessment be carried out by an archaeological license under the Ontario Heritage Act and submitted to the Ministry of Citizen and Multiculturalism. A letter issued by the MCM indicating that the reports have been entered into the Ontario Public Register of Archaeological Reports must be provided to the township, and the recommendations are to be implemented to the satisfaction of the Secretary Treasurer of the Land Division Committee or Committee of Adjustment. That a zoning bylaw amendment be in effect for the severed and retained parcels pursuant to the Planning Act. That a balance owing of $150 to be paid to the County of Northumberland for planning comments. Number 8, that a recirculation fee of $110 be paid to the Lower Trent Conservation Authority. 9, that cash in lieu of parkland be to be paid to the Township of Alma at a rate of 5% of the value of the land the day before approval was granted. The value of the land is to be determined by a certificate, certified appraisal, or sale price of the land, providing it occurred within 12 months of the approved date. And number 10, that $300 for the issuance of a certificate of official and $300 for the issuance of the certificate of cancellation be paid in accordance with bylaw 78, 2024 fee and charges bylaw. Can I get moved and seconded? Moved by Councilor Booth, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion is carried. And next we have a motion to adjourn. It is recommended the council of the Committee of Adjustment / Land Division Committee of the Corporation of the Township of Alma Calderman enact as follows. That the Committee of Adjustment Land Division Committee meeting held on June 24, 2025 be adjourned at 9:48 a.m. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover. Second by Councilor Ainsworth. Any questions? Go ahead.
Did we miss asking for public comment on that consent?
Did-
Is there anybody online? I don't believe the applicants in the audience today.
Mr. Broomfield, would you have any questions or comments regarding this application? Mr. Broomfield? Okay, thank you. Does any members of the public sitting here have any questions regarding this application?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Was there no public circulation of the document?
Yes, there was, and I hadn't heard from anyone on this application, so, and I expect that there likely hadn't been. the person online may be on for the next public meeting.
Okay.
I misunderstood the
Yeah.
councilor's comments.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, we're back, going back to our regular municipal planning / council meeting. So I'll read the recommendation that the council of the township of Allen Cullen, being a land division committee or a committee of adjustment, reconvene to municipal plan / regular council meeting at 9:51 a.m. And this is a public meeting. I'll read the motion that it is recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Allen Cullen enact as follows. That council go into a public meeting under section 34 of the Planning Act at 9:51 a.m. on June 24th, 2025. Okay, so it is recommended the council of the township of Allen Cullen, being a land division committee of adjustment, reconvene to the municipal planning / regular council meeting at 9:52 a.m. Did I get a mover and second? Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion is carried. Now, 10.1, motion can go into a public meeting. It is recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Allen Cullen enact as follows. The council go into a public meeting under section 34 of the Planning Act at 9:52 a.m. on June 24th, 2025. Can I get mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Booth. Seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We have in front of us zoning bylaw amendment application Z062025 by B and D Martin of 1481 County Road 23. And the application is planning number 2025-36 zoning bylaw amendment application Z0262025 by B and D Martin on June 24th, 2025. Tracy, please go ahead.
Thank you, through the mayor. We received an application in April of this year to permit a contractor or tradesman here for an established fencing business. The zoning bylaw amendment is proposed to zone the lands to permit the use. The property is designated rural and environmental, the subject property is located on the east side of County Road 23. Eddystone Road is adjacent to the north lot line and Pipeline Road is adjacent to the south. There is a house, storage building, livestock farm, and field shelters, a shipping container on the property. There are residential properties to the north and east, a farm property to the west, and agricultural lands to the south. The Shelter Valley Creek tributary stream is on the east edge of the property. And the Shelter Valley, virtually significant wetland complex and unevaluated wetlands are present on adjacent lands to the south. The property is designated rural and environmental protection in the township's official plan, and the proposed use is completely within the rural designation. Rural areas have diverse population levels, natural resources, geographies, and physical characteristics and economies. New development should be compatible with the rural landscape and sustained by rural service levels. New land uses and expanding the livestock facility shall comply with minimum distance separation formula. The formula is intended to prevent land use conflicts and minimize nuisance complaints from odor. MDS two calculations were performed for the livestock facilities on the property in relation to neighboring residential properties, as it appears that a building permit was not obtained for the livestock barn on site. Currently, 110 meters or 361 feet setback is required for the cows, and an 84 meter or 276 foot setback is required for goats and chickens to the existing dwellings on adjacent properties. An MDS one calculation was performed for the vacant dairy barn located to the west of County Road 23 for the contractor's yard. The contractor's yard is considered a sensitive use, and a requirement of 128 meters or 420 feet was calculated. This setback can be reduced if deemed appropriate by the municipality. Since the house on subject land is located approximately 60 meters from the livestock facility, the proposed use would not add a greater impact on the ability of future expansion to the dairy cow facility. Therefore, the reduced setback is appropriate. The property is adjacent to provincially significant wetland, water course, and woodland. Under section 4.1 of the PTF. There were no significant features identified on subject lands, and those features that were identified are more than 120 meters from the contractor's yard use. Section 4.6 does not permit development and site alteration on lands containing archaeological resources. The subject property is within 300 meters of the wetland and water courses, which meets the criteria for evaluating archaeological potential. Section 5.2 requires development to be outside of hazardous lands. The use proposed is beyond the area of the hazard on site. And LTC did not require completion of engineered floodplain mapping. The county's plan designates the property as rural areas and noted it was adjacent to the provincially significant wetland. The county also noted the township should consider archaeological assessment to evaluate the potential. Land use compatibility. They noted the requirement for MDS as well in the county's plan and indicated that if the town requires site plan, we may want to add a warning clause which recognizes the existing agricultural operation in proximity to the contractor's yard use. The township's plan again noted its zone or designated rural and environmental protection, and the proposed use is completely within the rural designation that permits agricultural uses, agricultural related, on-farm diversified, small-scale, commercial and industrial uses which serve or are related to the rural economy, farm-related residential uses, and non-farm related residential uses. Section 5.10.2 requires lots to be of an adequate size to permit the commercial or industrial use in an unobtrusive manner and to provide adequate off-street parking and loading facilities. Section 3.7.10 requires compliance with minimum distance separation formula. Provided that the MDS setbacks to adjacent residential properties and archaeological potential are addressed, the proposal is consistent with the PPF. Staff are proposing a holding symbol to secure for site plan approval. Should additional site alteration and construction be proposed, the site plan can address the need for future archaeological assessments. The zoning of the property is currently rural residential. The proposed contractor or tradesman yard is not a permitted use in that zone. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would create an exception to the RR zone to allow for the contractor or tradesman's yard. The applicant indicated that they acquired the property in March of 2021, and a review of our air photos from 2018 revealed the livestock facility was not located on the property prior to that time. There are no records of building permits for the barn, and it's noted that review building permits include performing an MDS calculations and a review of relevant zoning provisions. Section 7, the rural residential zone, does permit a hobby farm. It is not intended to be a large-scale agricultural operation and must comply with section 4.16 of the zoning bylaw. Since the property has 2 hectares or 5 acres, a maximum of 2 nutrient units is permitted, and MDS must be complied with. The applicant advised through their submission, they have 16 goats, 2 cows, and 24 chickens. And since have been reduced to, I believe, 11 goats. The original information calculated to be 2.8 nutrient units. And the livestock facility for the goats and chickens would require the 4-meter setback, while the cows would require 110-meter setback to the existing dwellings on neighboring properties. Currently, it's approximately set back 26 meters from the R zone boundary limits to the northeast. The reduction in the number of goats did not reduce the required MDS setback of 84 meters. And there's an attachment in the report that depicts the MDS setback requirements from the nearest points of the existing dwellings. Due to concerns that we have heard prior to the writing of the report, an exception to section 4.16 is not recommended by staff. The applicant is advised to relocate the barn and adjust the number and type of animals to comply with the zoning regulations and MDS setback requirements. A building permit would be required to relocate the barn. Given the industrial nature of the contractor's yard use and the proximity to residential properties, it is appropriate to scale that use in a manner that is consistent with the home industry. It is recommended that the use be subject to the regulations found in section 4.18, which for home industries, which requires limitation to 1 home industry operated within an accessory building, operated by an occupant of the dwelling that is on the same lot. It's not to be located in the front yard. Large yard depths are a minimum of 20 meters, but in combination with a minimum separation of 60 meters to the residential zones. And buffering is required of outdoor storage, parking, to be screened from view of both the public roads and adjacent properties. And parking is not permitted in the front yard. There's proposed exceptions to permit for employees who do not reside in the dwelling to recognize the current employees that are with the business, and to increase the permitted floor area from 100 meters square or 1,076 square feet approximately to 165 meters square or 1776 square feet. That would recognize the current number of employees and a shipping container with a small expansion of about 28 meters square. The exception is required to recognize the existing building located within the required setback. And attachment 7 does depict the required setbacks for that use. The applicant indicated that they have 1 shipping container and may wish to install another. We are recommending only 1 shipping container be permitted in accordance with section 4.37. This would limit the number to 1 due to proximity to adjacent residents. And there would be a requirement for buffering the shipping container to screen it from view. In addition, if additional storage space is required, an addition to the existing building within the 60-meter setback could be considered. The application was circulated to a number of departments and agencies. Public Works visited the site and determined the current entrance and culvert is not acceptable. The property owner is required to apply for an entrance permit for a commercial use that is approximately that is located 30 meters from the radius of County Road 23 in the Pipeline Road intersection. The building department advised that if the barn is to be relocated for compliance with MDS setback, the zoning buffer and the zoning bylaw regulations of current is required. The county advised that the township should consider relocation of the entrance from the 30 meters from the intersection. They advised that if there's plans to construct any temporary or permanent structures, that setback permit is required from the county. County planning recommended completion of an archaeological assessment and the MDS calculations which were done as part of the review. Lower Trent had no concerns and mapping was provided showing regulatory areas on the property. The application was circulated to the public to all owners within 120 meters of the subject property on June 4th, and signs were posted on site. We have received 5 submissions before writing the report and an additional submissions at that time. We received a number of concerns regarding noise and privacy. There was indication that the resident tried to resolve concerns with the neighbor. They experienced noise from farm and commercial business. There's beeping of vehicles, moving supplies, equipment, and snow removal. Dogs are barking with increased traffic associated with the commercial use. It has affected the use of the backyard and lack of privacy. They noted cameras pointing into their yard and no visual barriers to time allow business operations, commercial vehicles, parking lots, shipping containers and supplies, and away from surveillance lights. In terms of agriculture, there's no manure management. Concerns with potential of dumping manure over the east fence placed in the middle of the field or near the fence, consistently over 2 nutrient units, upwards of 12 goats, 12 chicken and 6 cows, noise from roosters and barking dogs. Business yards keep expanding, which limits room for animals, attraction of rats, close proximity to property lines, and construction without permits. In terms of outdoor storage and parking, the areas have increased. The shipping container was installed in October 2024, which is not compliant. Spanning truck and heavy equipment traffic. Parking contains 3 to 4 company trucks plus 2 older trucks and 3 to 4 employee vehicles, skid steers, constantly beeping, heavy equipment, tractors, etc. In terms of environmental, the zoning of neighboring properties to the south, there's some marsh area and the stream to the east. And across from the farm on County Road 23, there's marsh and barns and water. There's a lack of environmental controls in terms of the vehicles, heavy equipment, and lack of manure management could impact water sanitation and wells. Excessively sized bonfires used to burn fencing scraps in close proximity to sheds and trees. High winds, which are common, scatters embers onto the property. Doubtful adherence to MDS formula, impact of the hobby farm business on neighbors and maintaining MDS from the farm. Depreciation of property value. The local realtors were informed that their property value is depreciated because of the business and the excessive noise and unsightly landscape. It created an obtrusive environment impacting the enjoyment of their property and quality of life. And the overall, the business farm is not small scale operation, too big, and certainly not unobtrusive. So in conclusion, the property is located in a rural part of the municipality. A rezoning is required to address the contractor or tradesman's yard, which does not conform to the rural residential zoning provisions. However, the use does meet with the permitted uses listed in the PPS, the county and township's official plan, provided issues related to compatibility are addressed. The proposed amended zoning bylaw limits the use in terms of building size, number of employees,
yard depth separation to residential zones and buffering of outdoor storage and parking areas to address the concerns expressed and to deal with compatibility. A number of concerns were noted that are subject to other regulations that are enforceable. The contractor's trades person yard is subject to the noise bylaw 63/2022. Noise generated from that use is to be restricted between the hours of 7 AM and 10 PM Monday to Friday, 7 AM to 8 PM Saturday, and 9 AM to 9 PM on Sunday. The fire department confirmed that the applicant has obtained a standard burn permit, which allows for fires no more than 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter in size. And the fires require a minimum of 15 feet from any structures setback, and anything larger would require a special permit application, which involves an inspection by the fire department prior to having the fire. In terms of manure, consulted with the OMAC staff. They noted where 5 or less nutrient units are housed on a property, a nutrient management plan is not required under the Nutrient Management Act. They did provide information sheets and resources regarding manure storage, which has been passed on to the applicant. And in order to comply with the requirements for archaeological assessment, should future expansion be proposed, there is a holding symbol applied to the zoning that will require site plan approval, and that can be addressed through any agreements. If they look to expand in the future, we can require an archaeological assessment at that time. And since there's no requirement for like environmental impact studies or other technical report, a minor site plan application is recommended to deal with the technical aspects of the use. And the applicant is urged to comply with the hobby farm and MDS regulations. Non-compliance may result in charges being laid under the Ontario Planning Act. So we are recommending approval with the holding symbol and the requirement for site plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Any questions or comments from members? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Be Myrtle to our planner. Tracy, when I looked at the noise bylaw, can you tell me with what is going on this property, is it compliant with that noise bylaw? When I look at the times of days, and when I reference this, it is lawnmowers, gardening equipment. And I'm just wondering how that goes along with the equipment that's being used on that site. Thank you.
Thank you through the mayor. I am not the expert on the noise bylaw. I defer that to the CAO fire chief. I believe, like, from my read, that any equipment is restricted to certain hours of operation. I know they have bylaw enforcement has visited the site, but I'm not aware of whether they have laid any charges. Thank you.
Give a comment, Dave.
Through you, Mayor, I can comment to council that no, we haven't laid any charges in the noise bylaw, specific times of the day and days of the week. So, to my knowledge, there has not been any issues there with anything past 10 PM or 11 PM and or on Sundays.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mayor Lowell. I guess specifically, the church bell chimes, that would be it, because I don't think there'd be a church in that area. I guess the Eddystone would come in. But when I'm looking at specifically lawnmowers, gardening equipment, but it doesn't say skid steers. So I'm wondering how the equipment that is on site, how it's complying with the noise bylaw. Yeah.
Give a comment, Dave.
I just wonder if it's complying because of how this was written.
So obviously the bylaw there is a little bit dated. In the past, former bylaw officers have responded with a decibel reader machine to see if there's been any legitimacy to complaints. You know, that's something that's a tool for them to use for sure. But obviously being in the rural setting, it is what it is, and I won't comment past that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comment? Go ahead, Councilor Ridgway.
Through you, Mayor. So, a couple of things. So first of all, the laneway. So back in the pictures, it looks like I just would have to ask the landowner. That laneway was there when he bought the property. Because we're asking him to move it. Not something that I agree with, so I'm just wondering, you know, back when he bought the property, that laneway looked like it was there from the before and after pictures. Also, although getting permits would have corrected some of these, lot line distance from the barn and the neighbors and stuff. And I'm sure that the landowner will comment on that. But what would it take to move that barn? And by the looks of these lines, 110 meter one would be down by the Swanson line. Would be as close as possible to move. And my other question would be, you know, 2.8 nutrient building versus 2. So they would be my question, so we could have any answer on them.
Tracy, you have any response?
Through the mayor. So the entrance wouldn't have been installed to a standard that would facilitate commercial use. It would have likely have been a agricultural, possibly, when the lot was larger. It would have been residential. It may not have been established with a permit period. We'd have to go through files to determine that. But the use is changing, so the standards need to meet the requirements for the use at hand. And in terms of nutrient units, the guideline offers tables that explain what types of animals meet how many nutrient units, and it can vary. It's a very complicated formula based on odors and the amount of waste that's created by the different animals. Like one nutrient unit may be a cow, and it could be quite a number of chickens. So I think, you know, the applicants are aware that the cap is 2 nutrient units, and they can look at the calculation to determine what animals of what types meet that cap, and they can balance it out with the different types of animals that they would like to keep. Thank you.
I would assume that they should be contacting Mapper to get some more specific help. They would give them that.
Through the mayor, I can provide a calculator tool that Mapper has available, and the link to the guideline. And I would expect that Mapper staff would be happy to answer any technical questions if they arise. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, you have a follow-up?
For you. So the minimum distance, is it from the lot lines or the neighbor's house and the barn across the road? So
Are you talking, there's a house to the east?
yeah, so the house.
Is that the house you're talking about?
I'm looking at the drawings with all the circles showing me 84 meter buffer and 110 meter buffer. So is that from the house or from the property?
Go ahead.
Through the mayor, I did, I received follow-up questions from the applicant on this, so I did get in touch with OMAPRA staff to be very clear, because I had assumed initially that it was from the zone boundary. And they clarified that you would only apply it to the zone boundary when there's a vacant lot that's zone residential, because we wouldn't know where on the lot the house would be placed. but where there's an existing dwelling, it is measured from the closest point. So because of the angles that we're dealing with, in relation to the property, there's, if you look closely, there's red dots placed on the house, to the east. It looks like there's maybe an attached garage. I did clarify with OMAC to utilize that point in case they convert the attached garage at some point. And then there's, looks like maybe a bay window area on the south end. And then across the road on Eddystone, there's another house in proximity. So there's a red dot placed on that house as well. So the calculations were performed from both of those residents. There is overlap, so it would be, they would need to place the livestock facility outside of those areas that are overlapping. Thank you.
There are two buildings. And I just want to make sure I understand. One is for livestock and the other one is for storage.
I believe so. So the metal building is used for the business.
Yeah.
There's a building with a red roof that appears to be the livestock facility. We did have MDS training in the past week, and it was confirmed through that training that the MDS setback applies to fully enclosed buildings that house livestock. It does not apply to structures that are simply like a open shelter space for animals. So we'll need to confirm all of the buildings on site that are fully enclosed, that house buildings, and they'll need to make sure that those buildings are meeting the setbacks.
You did mention there's one that could be moved or should be moved. Which one is that?
Yes, through the chair, the red roofed structure does not conform. That would be the one that is of specific concern.
Is that the bigger one or the smaller one?
It's smaller than the metal building.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions, comments from staff? Go ahead, Councilor O'Neill.
I know in the past, when we've had people who went ahead and built without permission, that to rectify it, when they did their application, it was a double for the building permits. Is that going to be the case in this instance, or have we got that far?
I would have to confirm that with the building official. I'm not sure. I believe there's a charge if somebody builds without a permit. We would have to look at what the requirements were at the time period, and Don Butwell would have to confirm the fees for that.
Thank you.
Any other, go ahead.
Through your honorable to Madam Planner, when you're talking about relocating the barn for, I'll just say the red roof, and I'm looking at the circles. Are you looking at the east side of the pipeline to where the property ends? Is that the area where this barn would be relocated to?
Through the mayor, I think the applicant's going to have to determine what animals they're looking to keep. The black circle is calculated out on the assumption of chickens and goats, and the red is for cows. If they have intentions of bringing in other types of animals, like pigs, we'd have to run the calculation to figure out what the requirements are. Right now, they've indicated they have chickens, goats, and cows, so that's how the calculations were performed. I think, like I would leave it as to communicate what the rules are and have the applicant determine how they intend to meet those rules.
Oh, okay,
I think.
sounds good, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Ainsworth.
Through you, Mayor. Although I'd like to hear from the applicant, is it possible, and I don't know what should be the lesser price. I mean, it's a lot of these things, we put so much financial cost on our residents as it is when it comes to building and severances and stuff. Is it cheaper to build a barn outside the 110 meter than move the other one? Is that possible? And then just call the other barn a chicken barn.
I don't know if the planner can answer that, but if you can, please.
Through the chair, I'm not evaluating costs for an applicant. My role is to evaluate the land use only, so it would have to be up to the applicant to, you know, work with the rules that are approved today or in the future and make their plans accordingly.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for questions from the public that they may have for the planners. So I'll ask, does anybody have any questions for the planner?
I don't necessarily have questions, but.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Sorry, my name's.
And then come up to go, sit there, you can share.
My water, just.
Just to clarify, the public's invited to bring their concern and not necessarily questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good day, Mayor Local and members of the council. I'm Deputy Mayor, so. My name is Krista Hall and I live at 131 Eddystone, which is the property northeast of, the subject property. I've lived in rural Northumberland for 43 years and grew up on the coast farm. My family consists of 5 generations of farmers, tradesmen, and entrepreneurs, the majority of which work and reside in rural Northumberland. For 8 years, I worked in trades and ran my own business while saving to become a registered nurse, which has been my passion and career for 11 years. So please bear with me as I'm considered by profession to care and not a good public speaker. I'm sharing this so you know that I'm not opposed to farming, trades, nor entrepreneurship. Rather, I'm here to advocate for myself and neighbors who mutually oppose the activities occurring on the subject property since 2021, as well as the current rezoning application. On April 29th, the Martins applied for rezoning and the letter of notice was dated as June 4th. June 10th and 11th, neighbors and I received the letter of notice with no additional information about the application, the RR 71 bylaw draft, meeting agenda, or June 12th deadline to submit concerns for incorporation into the staff report. June 11th, I visited the township office and Tracy agreed to kindly discuss the situation with me. I obtained more information and submitted a written objection to the rezoning. On June 18th, the agenda, rural residential 71 proposal and staff report was posted online. This was the first opportunity to review the document after the meeting. Overall, there's been little time to respond to the application. I therefore requested deferral of the rezoning decision, especially since neighbors and I can't appeal it. As such, I'm here to verbalize concerns and objections before council and speak on behalf of myself and a few neighbors who can't make it today because of work or out of country travel. I will now explain the rationale behind the objections to the rezoning. To date, the Martins have ignored all McCullough bylaws with a give an inch, take a mile attitude. Additionally, they have disregarded concerns voiced by neighbors. The staff report outlines many of the concerns and non-compliance. For example, running a commercial business, exceeding hobby farm restrictions, which have consisted of 8 to 10 pigs, 6 cows, 15 plus goats, roosters, 12 plus chickens, 2 domestic dogs, and 2 livestock dogs. Exceeding 2 nutrient units leading to obnoxious odor and rats, zoning and MPS formula and setbacks, building permit, use of a shipping container, and constructing an unpermitted second driveway. The driveway previously that was there was a grass path that led onto the property that the Jameses used. Placement of 3 livestock sheds, 1 chicken coop, 1 barn, 1 large culvert style garage, a 40-foot shipping container, a non-farming shed, many of which are not shown in the staff report pictures due to outdated satellite imaging. Noise from the farm and commercial business, which consists of work equipment, a large outdoor storage yard, an employee parking lot, and multiple employees. Other concerns of non-compliance consist of lack of privacy from cameras and bright lights. Various farm and business related nuisances, no barriers shielding the unsightly property, The only acceptable barrier consists of trees along the north property line, some of which I own. Burning permits that don't permit the large scale burning that they do. Aggressive and untrained working dogs that bite through the fence and bark at us for hours. People, roads, workers, slow moving and idling vehicles, as well as customers, employees. The barking is nonstop at dark and the Martins are unable to control it despite minimal attempts, which is why increased presence of people and vehicular traffic is concerning. Lastly, there's been dumping in piles of manure along the property lines and over the east fence where there's a steep hill and a creek within a few yards. The creek feeds the provincially significant wetland directly south of the Martins. The Lower Trent has not been made aware of this fact. The above non-compliance has been habitual in nature and doesn't align with various aspects of the Alma-Coleman official plan. An objective of the plan is to enhance and preserve environmental qualities that contribute to the attraction of the municipality and for this township to assess compliance with this objective. The Alma-Coleman plan states industrial and commercial development shall be designated to appropriate locations and in a manner compatible with the natural environment and policies within the plan. The provincial planning statement, also known as the PPS, cited in the staff report designates the subject property as rural and environmental protection. However, the Alma-Coleman plan and zoning bylaws designated as rural residential. Rural is an umbrella term used to decipher it from more heavily populated hamlet and urban settings. The PPS states various types of zoning and land uses that occur in rural versus urban settings. Such uses include resource management, resource-based recreational uses, residential developments such as rural residential, agricultural, farming, home occupation, home industry, cemeteries, and other rural land uses. However, the Alma-Coleman official plan and bylaws outline specific zones and appropriate land use based on size, nature, and designation within our large rural community. For example, rural residential zoning has its own designation that is separate from agricultural, large-scale farming, extractive and aggregate industrial and industry, rural hamlet, commercial, industrial, and rural zoning, to name a few. In the Alma-Coleman plan and bylaws, are outlined by the PPS and its umbrella term for various rural activities. What's the purpose of Alma-Coleman plan and zoning bylaws? The rural residential 71 application is proposing a contractor or tradesman yard and home occupation or industry. By definition, this is a small scale business and not intended to be activities more appropriately located on land, specifically designated for commercial or industrial use. What's more, the plan states that bylaw amendment shall be made in one or more nuisance factors make it incompatible to surrounding area. Furthermore, neighbor properties will be protected by using appropriate setbacks for buildings and structures, devices and measures to reduce nuisances, regulation for alleviating adverse effects caused by outside storage, such as signs and so forth, minimizing traffic and parking by designating the appropriate ingress and egress in a manner that prevents hazards. And finally, landscaping, buffering, or screening that renders materials, items, or activities as not being visible from public roads or adjacent properties. I want to stress that none of the above has been accomplished. What's concerning is the inability to buffer the subject property and activities due to 3 road frontages, minimum trees, and a downhill proximity to neighboring rural residential properties. The only way to hide and buffer the equipment and materials is to place it in the garage or between the house and garage. However, this outdoor storage suggestion does not hide it from the Shepherd's property nor ours, Marilyn Shepherd being in attendance. Finally, I want to stress that the tradesman or contractor's yard is reflective of home industry, which by definition is not intended to consist of activities more appropriately located on land designated for commercial industrial uses, is limited to small scale use within one accessory building on the same lot as the proprietor, and is to be compatible with surrounding uses. The surrounding uses to the subject property consist of multiple rural residential homes, a well-maintained farm that complies with MDS restrictions, and environmentally protected wetlands. all of which boast private ownership unlike the subject property. A great concern is that Ben Markey disclosed to the Shepherds a couple weeks ago that they are planning to sell their business to Powell Construction, which is a large construction and fencing company. However, they disclose they will still live at the subject property. If this is factual, it's extremely concerning because of the Martins' history of non-compliance and overextension of their property. The plan also states no new noise-sensitive land use is permitted in areas where noise exceeds provincial guidelines, unless production control measures meet such guidelines. The Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks state, when sound becomes unwanted and loud, it becomes noise pollution. Noise pollution consists of any sound that disrupts a natural ecosystem or causes a person's property to become unusable or unpleasant, and has a negative impact on human health, including loss of sleep and increased stress levels, all of which have become our reality. The ministry states noise above 60 decibels is considered noise pollution. For reference, a dishwasher is 60 decibels. The ministry defines loud sounds as 70 to 80 decibels, such as city traffic or a noisy restaurant. Very loud sounds are defined as 90 decibels or more. A lawnmower is 90 decibels, whereas a vehicle horn, reverse truck beeper, such as the skid steer, or the barking of one large breed dog is consistent with 112 decibels. Many of these sounds consistently occur at the subject property during the day and throughout the night. The ill-wanted effects of noise pollution have become a reality for myself and neighbors. I want to also point out the discussion of the hours of operation. Basically, the hours that are in the bylaw, other bylaws in other communities have much more extreme restrictions. It's basically saying between 7 and up to 10 p.m. you can have noise occurring at any point in the day and on weekends. Others are excluding it from Sundays as well as weekends, and the hours of operation are a much shorter duration. In conclusion, our current Eddystone home used to be our forever oasis.
You want to take a minute?
No. This is important to me because of the high burnout nature of my career. However, this is now a memory of the past due to the subject property norms. Before purchasing our home, my fiance and I did our due diligence, researched the zoning and land uses surrounding our home. We ensured such use was not industrial, unsightly, stressful, or noxious in nature. We took note of the beautiful homes, the beautiful homes and pride of ownership surrounding us. Additionally, we walked and parked on the roads for long durations to survey the background noise and activities. In speaking to neighbors, they revealed they purchased their homes for the same reasons. It is therefore devastating to have one neighbor and their property have such a negative impact on several surrounding properties. And again, rezoning is highly opposed because the subject property greatly diminishes one's quality of life by way of reducing the enjoyment of their property, has increased stress and lack of sleep due to an inability to buffer associated nuisances from our properties, raises environmental and noise pollution concerns, negatively impacts surrounding property values, and in fact, 2 neighbors and I consulted with local realtors who confirmed this statement. In addition, I consulted with a property assessment company who has appraised properties in this area for greater than 40 years. I want to finish by urging council to recognize the negative impact rezoning will have on surrounding properties. It's unjust to reward unlawful and non-compliant behavior that adversely contradicts Almond Haldman zoning bylaws and official plan. It is not logical to confuse the PPS's umbrella term for rural activities as being synonymous to various zoning classifications contained in a rural community. The definition of rural is independent of rural residential. Hence, the reason the Almond Haldman bylaws and plan designate rural and rural residential as separate zoning classification with different terms of acceptable use. Finally, if rezoning occurs, extensive restriction must be placed on the subject property and the actions occurring within it, especially if a large industrial corporation such as Powell Construction purchases and runs their business on it. In addition, neighbors' concerns must be addressed, and consultation with neighbors should guide such restrictions. Though I have further objections, my time is limited to express them, and I do thank you for taking the time to listen. However, I have several pictures and recordings of what's been discussed above. I welcome the opportunity to share them with you before you make your decision. In addition, I have documentation of formal complaints to the township that I can also elaborate related to the noise and the ongoing of this property. None of which have been followed up to visits from the bylaw officer, as has been confirmed by the bylaw officer to me in written and verbal conversation. Therefore, please do not approve this rezoning and place a stop on the ongoing nuisance and non-compliance. I thank you for your time, for bearing with me, because I really am not good at this public speaking today. I do have with me as well, the picture that I mentioned that is in the report, that says it's from 2024 is very outdated. I have another picture here that shows the multiple accessory buildings that have been placed on there, as well as the barn. The large shed, which was given a permit, was placed on that property after the barn. It also shows this driveway here that was added by them. It used to be a grass driveway in which I have pictures of, and I can share with you. I also have pictures of what the property looked like before they took occupancy of it, and as well the pictures of the ongoing and unsightly manner in which it is now. I have recordings of dogs barking of up to 2 hours nonstop. Their response is their dogs, they bark. I understand livestock dogs. I grew up in farming. We had working dogs, but there is a limit of training them to bark appropriately at coyotes, wolves, anything along those manners, not at people sitting at the porch trying to enjoy it with their family and friends. In addition to vehicles parking at the side of the road or anyone who comes around. This has went on for 4 years. 3 years they've had those dogs and they have done nothing. There was actually a council meeting related to the business association in which we have text messages of those dogs barking nonstop and then trying to apologize, saying we don't know what was going on. However, this is a reoccurring issue. So the increase of all these multiple uses of this land is either taking away from the farming, which is non-compliant to setbacks, or you've got the industry. 5 acres is not supportive of everything that they're trying to achieve. So that is my final statement. I will let you go. Tracy has stuff that she would like to speak to as well in relation to the property. Thank you. Oh.
Yeah, can you just state your name for?
Sorry, at the beginning, it's Krista Hall. I own the home on 131 Eddystone that is the northeast property, to the subject property.
And that's right on the corner? Is there another, is that the first one on the corner? Is it,
On the image that you guys have, if this is 23, this is Pipeline.
Yeah.
This is Eddystone, this is their property, I am right here. The Shepherds own the property that is right here, who Marilyn Shepherd is in attendance today. We had other neighbors, Allison and Bob, who are just down the road, the Reeds, who they actually left out of town yesterday. And I've contained some of their concerns and complaints in this as well with respect to the impact the property and the noise has had on their real estate value and well-being as well.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions? Deputy Mayor?
To you, my local, and this would be to our chief administration officer. Do you have any idea how many times bylaw has attended this property? Thank you.
Go ahead, Dave.
To your mayor, no, I don't have those records.
Would it be more than once?
I won't speculate.
I think the permit has been,
Thank
I
you.
know of at least 4 times in which I have correspondence with the bylaw officer.
Councilor Booth?
Through your worship to Krista, what was your comment at the start, Krista? Are you asking for this motion to be deferred then because you're saying that some of the other neighbors do you want to make a delegation in front of council? Is that what you're talking about?
I've had neighbors who have spoken to me, reason for if it is. If the notion is to try to pass it, I would like it deferred because I don't feel that council has had the opportunity, for myself to present the recordings, the multiple correspondence that I've had with the bylaw officer. In addition to pictures that are outdated that were presented. I've literally, for the last week since becoming aware of this, have read through all of this literature, trying to flag, cite, and kind of figure out an argument as to why I don't think that this bylaw amendment should occur. And I would like to be able to, because of the large size and the duration in which I've got dated documentation and recordings of what's going on in this property. I would like to have that shared if at all possible, if there's consideration that this bylaw is going to proceed. So that there are restrictions in place. Because there's a lack of ability, because of the nature of this property, to shield it as what is stated in the plans and the bylaws from the rural residential properties, I do have great concern over it. When we had spoken to the neighbors, previously, when they disclosed that they were building that large, culvert style, garage, they had indicated the intention was so they no longer had indoor storage or outdoor supplies and materials, and that all of the industrial related equipment was going to be stored in that, which has not been the case. As far as the barn, though it is not similar to the James's barn across from the road, it does have a small opening, but it is closed. And at one point, they did have pigs that were in that forested area in which manure management was non-existent or impossible because of the fact you can't clear that out of trees. In addition to that barn, they have constructed or had constructed 3 other livestock sheds, which in accumulation does create quite an odor when it's not managed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other members of public who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Morning, Eleanor Olmsted. I'm acting as agent for 512623 Ontario Limited. 512623 Ontario Limited is the owner of the provincially significant wetland to the south. I submitted a letter on behalf of 512623 Ontario Limited. I think that's on the record, but that's not what I want to speak to today. What I want to speak to is whether a home industry is permitted on this property at all, or merely a home occupation. And the definitions of home occupation and home industry are very distinct. Section 2.6 of the Planning Act sets forth its permitted uses for rural lands, which include home occupations and home industries. Rural lands, in my opinion, in 2.6 of the Planning Act, are discussing non-city applications, rural in a broad sense. The zoning bylaw, number 19 from the Alderman, is the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw outlining specific rules and regulations for land use and development within the township. Section 2 of the bylaw sets forth the zone classifications on page 5. And section 2.2 of the bylaw sets forth individual zones or categories of zones. So the categories are rural agricultural, that's number 1. Number 2, residential zones. Number 3, commercial zones. Number 4, industrial zones. Number 5, community open space zones. And number 6, environmental zones. Rural residential falls within the residential zones. As well, there are hamlet, shoreline, and limited service residentials, but RR clearly falls within the residential zone. The primary focus is on residential development. On page 144, section 7 of the bylaw. The permitted uses are set forth for rural residential zones. Section 7.1. On page 144 sets forth these zones, these uses. 7.1 has permitted uses, a single detached dwelling, well, that's obvious, etc. One of them is 7.16, which is a hobby farm, and one of them is 7.17, which is a home occupation. The staff report deals extensively with one of the permitted uses, 7.16, a hobby farm, and the setbacks required pursuant to section 7.2 and the MDS requirements. The other applicable permitted use is section 7.1.6, which is the home occupation. Whether you can have two uses on a property, I don't know the answer to that question. There may be some precedent in the township, but definitely under section 7.1.7, there's a home occupation. In general parlance, a home occupation is a business or professional activity conducted within a dwelling unit that is the primary residence of the person or persons carrying out the business. It's considered a secondary use to the residential use of the property, meaning the business activity should not dominate the property or significantly alter its residential character. There's specific language in zoning bylaw 19 for 219 in the definitions on page 24, describing home industry versus home occupation. So there are two separate categories. Home occupation in the definition on page 24 means an occupation or business conducted for gain or profit entirely within a dwelling or dwelling unit by a person residing therein. Home occupations include uses such as an office for a professional tradesperson, an art or photographic studio, a craft shop, a workroom for a dressmaker or seamstress, a hairstylist, an art or music teacher, or similar activity. A home occupation shall include a private home daycare operation in a dwelling or dwelling unit that does not require a license under the Day Nurseries Act. That's home occupation, which I believe is permitted in rural residential under section 7.17. Not permitted, in my opinion, is home industry, which means a small scale commercial or industrial establishment that operates entirely within a separate accessory building on the same lot as the home of the proprietor. Home industries include uses such as carpentry, woodworking shop, a craft shop, metal welding shop, an electrical shop, a plumbing shop, small engine repair, or landscaping or landscape contracting business, a nursery greenhouse, a siding roof installer, a sign making shop, a taxidermy shop, an appliance repair, a tack shop, a bricklayer masonry operation, a firewood cutting yard, a boat trailer RV storage facility, and a bus truck parking and maintenance facility. So, in my opinion, what is being operated on lot 18 concession 3 is not a home occupation. It may be a home industry, but that is not permitted in the rural residential zone. You have an application requesting an exception for a use that is not permitted in the zoning bylaw. The official plan for Alma Coleman has similar definitions for home occupation and home industries. The language and the definitions are not identical in the official plan and in the zoning bylaw. But what it states is that home occupations and home industries are not intended to be activities more appropriately located on lands that are specifically designated for commercial or industrial uses. All of the issues that were raised in the letter sent by 512-623 Ontario Limited fall away if the definition of home occupation is followed in section 7.1.7. There will be no extra driveway. No business will be operated in the hodgepodge of buildings on the property. The storage container will not be required, etc. Although the staff report says there are no staffing, financial, and legal implications, there are detrimental environmental noise and community impacts and a very dangerous precedent for this community. There are economic consequences for the neighbors in quality of life and value of property, aesthetic implications for the community, and possibly detrimental effects to sensitive wetlands to the south. The lands to the south have been accepted and are now classified as a PSW for the province for 2026. An environmental impact study should be conducted prior to any determination of the use of this property, as well as a traffic impact study and the archaeological assessment. Tracy did a great job of circulating this application to applicable legislative agencies. However, only minimum notice was provided to those most affected. Delay in hearing this application will correct any inconsistencies and possibly provide appropriate adequate protection for our PSW. It will not affect the applicant other than permitting him time to remove some of the unpermitted buildings on the property. I am confused as to how this whole situation came about with, I think, possibly 10 structures on this property, storage of equipment, storage of skid steers, tractors, and 4 employees, parking, etc. It just doesn't make any sense that this has happened in our community in a rural residential zone close to other landowners. So those are my comments, and I suggest a delay until further information can be provided for this council.
Thank you. Any questions for, is it Eleanor?
Eleanor.
Eleanor from council? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public here that would like to address this?
Oh, yeah, out of the way, the rest of it?
Oh,
Okay,
I have to check online as well.
sorry.
Are there any members of the public online who would like to address this discussion? Mr. Broomfield, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, would the applicant like to address council?
Sure. My name is Ben Martin.
Morning,
And- Pardon?
say good morning,
Good
Ben.
morning. Thank you for meeting here today. Nice and hot, so. We'll try and be quick here for the rest of this. So me and Diana live at 1481 which is about 4 kilometers south of here. And we moved there in 2021. And we started this business soon after. And right now we employ 3 people that live in Northumberland County, 4 including myself. So that's 4 different families that our business supports in our community. And then I wasn't really sure how this meeting was gonna go. We didn't hear anything from like ahead of time regarding complaints or issues until we got this report. So there's a lot of complaints in here that are simply untrue or extremely exaggerated, and some of them are just it's like literally lying. So I think it's best for me to go through the list of complaints and just address them one at a time. And then if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer anything that has to do with the specifics of what buildings are where, or how they operate, hours of operation, and things like that. Noise and privacy, the first one's trying to resolve concerns with neighbor, they continually disregard concerns. We did get 2 livestock dogs 3 years ago, and there was issues at the beginning regarding the barking, and I'm not gonna hide that, it's not a secret, there was bylaw complaints that gets made, and a couple times bylaw came by our house to address the submittal or the submission. Both times, they found no problem or no violation of the noise bylaw or the bylaw that exempts livestock dogs from the noise bylaw. After the second time bylaw came, I don't know the exact date, but it would have been a couple months later, we got a visit from Northumberland Animal Control. Again, they had 0 issue with the dogs or any of our livestock facilities, and her exact words were, "I'm not sure why we're even here in the first place." So that kind of attests to the fact that our operation is small and it's not. It's not, and it doesn't even require any sort of nutrient unit thing. So all the Northumberland County animal control had to say was they weren't sure why they were here because of how little concerned the dogs was. And we have gone back and forth a few times with the neighbors on the north, or Kristen who just spoke, regarding how we would address these dogs barking. And over the years, they have significantly stopped barking. They can walk outside, they can walk along their fence, along the property line, they can walk their dog. They can have people over, and the dogs are not sitting at the fence or anywhere barking at them. It's just simply not true. I believe that there probably was recordings that were made a couple of years ago when we first got the dogs and they were puppies and they weren't trained. But now it's just simply not true. And we have employees that come to our yard, as well as the increased traffic flow of humans that come to our yard, and the dogs do not hunt those people. And I would invite any of you guys to come by anytime, and you can see yourself that if you walk into my yard, they're not going to sit there and bark at you for hours on end, if even more than 30 seconds. The noise from farm and commercial business, the farm noise is minimal. There's pretty much no noise. There might be the odd bag or a goat. The noise from the business, we operate within the bylaw noise, the noise bylaw. All of our work that this business does is carried out off-site. We do 0 manufacturing and 0 work on site. The only thing that happens at our house is my employees come at 7 a.m. They park their car, they come into the shop, load up their supplies, and they leave. And they come back at the end of the day, whether that's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, all well within the noise bylaw. There is 0 use of equipment at our shop other than to load and unload said equipment onto our trailers to take it away from our shop and use it somewhere else. Leaving vehicles, moving supplies, equipment, and snow removal. Yeah, like the skid steer does have a backup paper, and that's something that I can look at having removed maybe, or we can just cover it up. I'm sure there's ways to get around that. I've never had that done up to me before, so I was unaware that was a problem. And anytime that beeping was on, it would be within the hours of that is outlined in the noise bylaw. Moving supplies, yeah, we can load and unload equipment and material onto our trucks and trailers to take it off site and install it somewhere else. Snow removal, it's pretty straightforward. I have a garage on my site, and I have a driveway that goes to my garage. Pretty sure most people have snow removed, and they either use a snow blower or an ATV or a skid steer or a tractor to do so. So that's just an example of how things are being exaggerated. Dogs barking with increased traffic associated with commercial use. Yeah, not true, and I invite any of you guys to come by and you can see that for yourself. Affecting the use of the backyard, lack of privacy. We're gonna have to address that obviously with some sort of buffer, but there's gonna have to be it's gonna have to be reasonable because it's on a hill. And in my opinion, if you're concerned about the view from your hill, you should probably own the land that's in your view, because you can't buy a house with the expectation that that land in the future will always look the same. We have a growing population. There's growing industry, there's more houses being built this direction of Toronto and the GTA. It will continuously change over forever. It's never gonna not change, so. Being on a hill is a choice that was made by the people that bought that property, and I can't control that. I can see my property from theirs. Cameras pointing in the yard, yeah, we have surveillance cameras on our building. You cannot see, it's, so we, yeah, like it's pointing in our field, which their field is attached to, so, we do not surveil the house or surveil anything that goes on the property, and we have no reason to or plan to, and I don't believe having surveillance cameras on your property that catch other properties is against the law. No visual barriers to hide loud business operation, commercial vehicles, parking lot, shipping, container, and supplies. So yeah, that's true, and we're willing to address that. Noise surveillance lights. We have 0 lights on the exterior of the building or any of our buildings other than our house. The only light on our house, the only lights on the property are on our house, and they consist of a floodlight that goes on our front driveway and a floodlight that goes towards our backyard. And that, so it's a light in our backyard. It's dark. Like there's no street lights. There's a street light across the road that doesn't work most of the time, and we have lights. It's dark. We have dogs. We have a 1-year-old kid. We need to be able to see that. When we look at the window, we should be able to see. That's pretty straightforward and really points out the exaggeration of these complaints. So agricultural, no manure management, dump manure over the east fence, placed in the middle of the field or near north fence. We've never dumped manure over the east fence. We have put some old like hay and straw over that fence, which is still property that I own. There's just a fence there to keep the animals in. And but from what we found, if you're below 5, you don't need a manure management plan. That being said, the manure that's in the field, it's just straw. It's just straw and hay. It's not that like we have 2 cows. It's not that much manure. So we can get rid of that. That's not a big deal. It was just put there for the time being to just clean up the stalls. Consistently over 2 units. Yeah, we're going to work with the MDS regulations. We were unaware of that until this application was made. We have 11 goats. We have 24, 23 chickens. We have 1 rooster. We haven't had more than 1 rooster in years. And we have 2 cows. We do not plan on getting any more cows. Noise from roosters, barking dogs. That's pretty straightforward. We've already covered that. Business yards keep expanding, which limits room for animals. So what we've applied for has been outlined in the form that we gave Tracy, and it showed a current aerial view of the property with where all the current buildings are. That was submitted in the report when we applied. In the report, we put all the measurements for the yard that we currently have and plan to use. It will not expand any farther into the field to the east or to the north, or anywhere else actually from within that area that was outlined in the report. Tracking rats. I mean, every farm in Northumberland County has rats sometimes, and we actively work to keep them at a minimum by working with a local exterminator to ensure that we have proper traps set up constantly all year round. And they do keep to a minimum. Close proximity to property lines, I believe everything is within is less than 84 feet or 84 meters from the nearest dwelling. That back building, the one that's been up for discussion, the one with the red roof, is. We would have to measure it to know for sure, but we believe it's 85 meters from the neighbor's dwelling place, which would allow it to be housing for goats. That building is also not an enclosed building. The total size of that building is 12 feet by, I believe, 36 or 34 feet. There's only a 4-foot section or a 5-foot section in the middle of that building that is closed in, that does not house animals. The only thing that's in there is some supplies. There's no animals that are enclosed in that building. It's a lean-to style building with a fully open front. So it is not, in my opinion, considered a livestock facility. It's a shelter for livestock. Construction without permits. The Quonset hasn't a permit on it, and it was done back when we built it. The building that's close to the pump line does not have a permit. I had communications with staff when I applied for the permit for the Quonset hut, which is the metal building. And it was asked if I had a permit for that building, and I said no, it's because it's just sitting on the ground, and it's for like animals and hay storage. And I was advised that I would not need to get a permit, and that if I were to build more buildings in the future, to ensure that I get a permit for those future buildings, which we have not built any buildings since then. And that was told to me by the building inspector at the time. And since then, all the buildings that we've gotten are under the square footage that require the permit, and they're the ones that come on the back of a truck, and you can move them around, and they bring them on the back of a truck, and you just slide them into place, and they're all under the permit size. Outdoor storage and parking area increasing. As I said, we will retain the total future size of that lot to the fenced-in area that was outlined on that application. Shipping containers since October 2024, which is not compliant. That's part of the application. Spanning truck and heavy equipment traffic. We have four. We have 3 work trucks, 2 trailers, 1 skid steer, 1 small walk-behind skid steer, and then we have a farm tractor. I can't see it being any more than that. I could see maybe 1 more truck being purchased, like a regular sized truck being purchased. Nothing over 2 tons, which would keep us within the zoning allowing for that. So yeah, expanding truck and heavy equipment traffic. We're pretty much at the extent of what you should expect there, with the expectation that there could be 1 more truck at some point. Parking contains 2 to 3 company trucks plus 2 older trucks. Yeah, I have a personal older truck. No problem. That's beside the point. Does not have any affiliation with the business. 3 to 4 employees. That's correct. Skid steer. That's correct. Constantly beeping. Completely. Constantly is just a complete exaggeration. It's completely not true. The only time it beeps would be to load it onto the trailer, or to load something onto the trailer with it. It does not get used at all on our site, other than to load and unload. And then I would say the odd time moving things around in the yard and moving snow in winter. But it by no means constantly beeps. We didn't purchase that skid steer to have it sit there and work in our yard. We purchased it to go to job sites and operate on job sites. Not our yard. Large heavy equipment trailer. Yeah, there's a trailer. Tractor. There's a tractor. And there's a small bobcat machine that's walk behind it. Okay, as for the march across the road, so this operation will provide 0. It will cause 0 environmental contamination. There's zero environmental contamination. We do not have running water. We do not have a septic on that business, on the business portion. We do not have any sort of, mechanical operation where we do maintenance or oil changes. We do all of that. It happens off-site at mechanic shops. We do none of our own mechanic work when it comes to, any sort of oil or fluids or anything like that getting into the ground, and we don't even have water. The fuel tank is a brand new fuel tank that has all the current environmental protections that it needs, which is from Upper Canada Fuels, and it's brand new. So yeah, there's zero runoff. There's nothing goes from our property off of our property. Everything stays on there. So the manure management, we can get rid of the pile of hay that's in the field. We don't need a manure management for this size of hobby farm. I mean, it's literally, it's 2 cows and some goats. We're not talking a commercial dairy farm operation. A couple cows so that we can try and raise some of our own food. So that being said, I'm happy to get rid of that pile of hay and straw that's in the field. It's no problem. Excessively sized bonfire pit used to burn fencing scrap in very close proximity to sheds and trees. High winds common to our property, scattered members onto our property at times. We definitely do not have fires when it's windy. That is foolish, and I always check the weather for the evening, and obviously the current weather before lighting any sort of fire at our property, and we always have an active burn permit on that. We do not burn fencing scrap or any business garbage ever. The only time that some fencing scrap may be burned would be cedar post cutoffs, which are plain wood, not pressure treated, just plain old cedar that come back from jobs, and they're good for sitting around having fires because they're only usually about this big. We do not burn any pressure treated wood. We do not burn any fencing garbage or scrap or anything like that. Everything gets taken to the dump. We do not dispose of any sort of waste like that on site. Everything gets taken to the dump. So scattering members on the property, I find that really hard to believe because we don't have fire when it's windy, and we don't burn anything on clean wood for personal use. Doubtful adherence to MDS formulas, impact of the hobby farm on neighbors, and maintaining MDS from far west across our room. So yeah, we're happy to work with the MDS, but we weren't aware of that until we applied this application and were made aware of that formula. We never thought it was more than just a hobby farm for our own personal use. So we didn't think we needed to worry about that. But anyway, we're happy to apply it, we will work within the regulation of the MDS formulas. That's no problem at all. And from the setbacks, again, we can also work within that. The one barn is pretty close. It could be at 84, it could be at 85. I believe it's at about 85 meters from the dwelling to the north. And if it's 84 meters, then we will ensure that cows don't go in there, and that's only for goats. And we have the cows can stay in a lean-to that's 110 meters. That's no problem at all. If it is too close, then we can designate that building as like feed storage or hay storage, and won't house the livestock in that portion of the yard if it's within the 84 meters. So we're happy to work with all the MDS formulas. Local minister recently informed us our property is appreciated because commercial business and created excessive noise and unsafe landscape has created an intrusive environment impacting the enjoyment of own property and quality of life. There's not much I'm going to comment on that. that's what the realtor said, that's what the realtor said, I can't comment to it, other than that we will work with the recommendations to provide buffer zones from our current yard. Overall, the business slash farm is not a small scale operation. I believe the farm is very small scale, it's gonna be 2 nutrient units. And there's way too much going on in a small property, it's a 5-acre property that's wide open, there's a lot of room for what we're doing. And it's not intrusive to our neighbors, that they can still look out their porch or their windows and see a whole lot more than just a contracting yard. That's about it for me.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Councilor Booth?
Through you, your worship, to Ben, can you tell me what's the size of the shipping container? You mentioned it, that's on your property.
It's 40 feet long.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Deputy Mayor?
Just a couple, Mayor Lowell. Ben, thank you for coming today. Just a couple things. Have you separated the house from the operation, the small scale farm operation?
No, it's all one.
It's all one,
Yes.
so you do have a septic system there?
At my house,
Yes,
Which
which
is-
is all one part of the property.
but it's completely separate from the commercial operation.
Yeah, but it's all on one property, it hasn't been separated?
That's correct.
Thank you. So right now you have 11 goats, 23 chickens and 2 cows.
That's correct.
Perfect. And so I guess, Mayor Lowell, if I may, over to Tracy. I'm a farm girl, grew up on a farm, and the first time I ever heard of, where did I write?
Nutrient units.
Thank you, nutrient units. I don't know if that's just I don't ever remember Dad ever talking about that, but is that something new, that how you are measuring how much should go on a property with the amount of animals that are here?
Through the mayor, it's not a new formula. I'm not entirely sure on the date that it came into effect, but I've been using it for many, many years in my career.
I've been off the farm for a little while too.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it's a nutrient unit is like a formula. It's a calculation based on the type of animal and odor factors that the OMACRA have developed. So each type of animal could have a different nutrient unit associated with it.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, well, just a comment more than anything, I guess maybe over to Ben. When I looked at the noise bylaw, 63-2022, section F rings a bell where it might apply if the dog's barking excessively. That really is a breach in that noise bylaw, because you are stopping the enjoyment, and the animal is stopping in the enjoyment of somebody in the area. And that would just be one of my comments to say that really could be a breach. Thank you.
Can I respond to that, Paul? So in the noise bylaw, that you're right, it does say that, but it also says that working dogs and livestock dogs are exempt from this noise bylaw. And that being said, the dogs do not bark constantly all the time, like it has been reported that they do.
Go ahead, Councilor Ainsworth.
Yes, through you, Mayor, just some comments. And, I want to thank everybody for coming and bringing their comments and their issues. But I do want to say that we have done this multiple times with zoning. And, far be from me to stop someone from trying to make a living and for other people from trying to make a living. And our township is changing. We all know that. People are moving in. We got houses pricing all over the place. We got businesses that are popping up all over the place. And, we are trying to get control of all that. And this is the prime example. You can't comment on what happened in the past. And this might be some of the issues that we're having because of how things were done in the past, and we're trying to clean these up. So I commend staff for getting this brought to council. And, you know, somehow, I like the fact that Ben is going to make some commitments to clean some of this other stuff up for his neighbors. And, I think he's well aware of the issues and in the future that a lot of these will go to the wayside and, you know, neighbors can start getting along again. But, you know, they are there, Ben, and you have to address some of them for sure. And I'm sure that you will. So, my comment.
Thank you, Mike. Further comments? I'd like to address one thing for you, Ben. You know, when you were mentioning the lights, and I'm sure you're right that the housing lights are the only ones that are there. I was wondering if they were referring more to vehicular lights that, you know, coming in and going out, and that's what they're seeing.
That says surveillance lights on the complaint, and we don't operate after dark. We do not operate after dark, so any vehicle lights would be during the day.
That's one thing that I had noted. There was a drawing on there in your report. It was handwritten. Who prepared that?
We did.
Okay. And is that where you are today? Is that where we are today, or?
Yeah, that's where the buildings are today.
Okay, so that's, there's no plans to move this, that, and the other type thing. It's just where we are today. That's just what I wanted to confirm.
Yeah, the only thing that might have to move is the C-can, depending on if we have to move the entrance. We have to move the C-can, because it would basically align right in line with where the C-can is. So we would just move that and put the entrance there.
Okay. Just to carry on with what Mike has said, he's absolutely right. Things are changing. You know, there are more demands for residential properties in the rural areas. And there's also people that are trying to, you know, work with what they have and start businesses out of that. And it's really up to the council to decide what's best. I think it's very important, Ben, that you work together with your neighbors. And if we do decide to defer this, I think there's an opportunity for you to address some of these things more in writing than just, you know, in your comments today.
I believe we have to enter into a site plan application as part of this application, which would require all the things that need to be addressed, be in a written form on a site plan. Which we would start after, if this is passed today, that would start pretty much immediately.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ben.
Okay, thanks.
Tracy? You have a comment? Go ahead, Mike.
Just one final comment. I mean, Tracy's got a good report here, and I trust that Tracy's going to make sure that these issues are going to be addressed, site plan. And, you know, I would like to see that this move on and let Ben do his due diligence and work with these neighbors.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'm going to move on to 10.3. And that is the motion to reconvene to a municipal planning regular council meeting that the council meeting of the Township of Almaco will reconvene to the regular council meeting at 11:29 a.m. By the mover and second. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor? That motion is carried. Next we have, report from Tracy regarding Bill 17 and the Protecting Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act for 2025. Want to address your comments?
Through the mayor, I think that council has had the opportunity to have a look at the report. If there's any questions, I'm available to answer.
Members of council, go ahead, Councilor Neal.
It's actually a question that falls from your question earlier today, Mayor Noble, which was about the financial implications for us of this report, and I'm wondering if we could have something brought back to us as council to explain what the financial implications will be.
Go ahead, Tracy. You're ready.
So in terms of changes, there's a shift to when development charges can be collected. I don't believe that would involve an impact, as we would still be able to collect the amount. Like in terms of land division, sometimes a lot's created and there's significant time that would pass between when the conditional approval was provided versus when a house is constructed, and we collect the balance, the difference in the balance between the time the approval was granted and the time the permit was issued. So we would still be in a position of collecting the same amount that are permitted under the development charges act. So I'm not aware of any other financial related items unless you have something specific that you would like to speak to.
Follow up.
Yes, I do. It sounded to me that there would be a delay actually, so some of the fees that we might have anticipated seeing this calendar year might be deferred to a later calendar year, and that was kind of where I was. Is this going to impact our anticipated revenue for this year? But in your explanation, I would like to clarify the amount then that they're going to be able to collect. Is it as of when they make the application or as of when they actually build?
Go ahead.
Through the mayor, it's collected when they are obtaining a building permit. That would permit occupancy. I did speak with the chief building official. We don't have an occupancy permit per se, so it would be collected when the building permit is issued. And I think if there was a request for a report on financial implications, it would likely best come from our acting treasurer. Thank you.
Other members, go ahead, Councilor Ainsworth.
To you, Mayor. So, glad to see this come to council, but just a comment and maybe for the future is that, you know, with Bill 17, Bill 5, first it was Regulation 23, then Regulation 4124 come out for the Conservation and Buildings Act and make changes to get rid of red tape. Right, so all these here, and along with Mary Catherine's group that she's on with the Northumberland housing enforcement. So that whole thing, you know, this is coming together. You know, maybe the hard way, maybe the long way, but most of the people that are holding the buttons are understanding that we need to build out of this. And so I'm glad to see this come. And I would ask staff if there can be or is in the future, hopefully in the near future. I was looking at our official plan because our official plan is not the changes to the bills. We need to get that done because if we're making decisions on land and severances and stuff, that has to coincide with these bills, or we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot here most of the time.
The unfortunate part about Mr. Wilson coming at it so quickly,
Yeah,
but that's, and I'm not making an excuse for you, that Trixie, but that has been a factor I've been past, where you just get it back started and get changes.
Mayor, also, I just, when these are coming to council, because of all the changes that are going on in our official plan and the county official plan hasn't been designated as change, you know, it's nice for council to understand that we have the power to make some decisions on these here. So, something to think about.
Okay. Thank you. I have one question, you made reference to the Planning Act in the report. And they mentioned whether you have, when you have a qualified, engineer, I guess, whatever it was, individual, actually is what they used, that has been involved in making the application, and then you made reference to a peer review, again. Is that in conflict or not? Or two different messages?
Through the mayor, so, one of the changes was that, like, to state that if an applicant submits a study by a qualified professional, it's to be accepted. There have been other municipalities who will have a list of consultants they prefer to prepare their reports, which, this change will prevent that from happening. What it doesn't prevent is for us to have that study evaluated from our perspective. Like right now, we have a significant development, like a subdivision. We retain a peer reviewer to review the expert work of the applicant from the municipality's perspective to make sure all of our, needs are addressed through that report. And we provide comments to developers based on that peer review. So the changes wouldn't affect, in my opinion, our ability to still retain peer reviewers to provide comments on those technical reports.
That's your opinion, and I'm not questioning your opinion, but I was just reading that, I was wondering if that's what it meant.
Yes.
The way you understand it is that, we will continue on with the same process.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, to our Madam Planner, you bring up a very good, point. You learn all the regulations, all the rules, and then immediately they start changing, and it's just like fast, ever moving, and trying to keep up on where do we fit here. So I really, thank you for keeping up with this fast moving vehicle, because every time I turn around, there's another change. And with those changes, we're faced with situations here that are difficult for us to keep up with. And as I read your report, a lot of the points that are brought up in those bills they don't apply to us right now, but I guess eventually they will. But this is just such a moving train sort of thing. And kudos to you, Madam Planner, for keeping up and doing the utmost best of the job. Thank you.
Any further comments? I have one, Councilor O'Neill, who asked for financial implications. You like to put a motion on the floor that be requested as that? Go ahead.
Perhaps not at this exact moment, because as the deputy mayor, you and Tracy have all referenced, this is a very much a moving thing, but I do think we need to look at it holistically. We haven't had a treasurer in place for over a year, and it would be very nice to get a treasurer's report that does outline the implications. And as you noted, as more and more of the charges get moved over into the building department rather than the planning department, what's that going to look like for us? So I think it's something we need to be thinking about, but maybe not happening today.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read the resolution. regarding Bill 17 to protect Ontario by building faster and smarter act. Is recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Allen Cullen act as follows. The council received report PLN 202537, Bill 17, protecting Ontario by building faster and smarter act 2025 for information. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Wonder if we want to take a 5-minute break? Because we've been going at it pretty hard now, so we can take, well, let's make it 10 minutes. 11:40, we got up there,
Yes,
11:40?
Yeah.
11:50, we'll be back.
it is. We wanna do it.
Okay, we're ready to go back, to a regular meeting, and we're gonna start off with bylaws. And our first bylaw is number 512025, zoning bylaw amendment Z06. Excuse me, BL 512025, zoning bylaw Z062025 for June the 24th, 2025. I'll read the resolution. That bylaw number 512025 being the bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw amendment for application Z062025, hard law 18, concession 3, Alderman, to be given the first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 24th day of June 2025. Moved by Councilor Ainsworth. Second by.
No. I'm moving that be deferred.
Okay. Then I didn't move second.
What place? Are you moving to pass it or to defer it?
Well, we should move it. Should be moved so we can discuss it.
You printed it out.
Need a second. Yeah. Yeah. So if it gets on the floor, and Council Ainsworth has requested that, you can still bring it up to vote. Or anything else can do that. At all, can I get a second? Seconded by Councilor Booth. Any discussions? Councilor Enfield.
So you, Mayor, I guess one quick comment is that, you know, with all with the neighbor and Ben coming and talking about issues and stuff, it's really, you know, 85 or 90% of it's bylaw stuff. We're here dealing with zoning, you're dealing with planning. Bylaw stuff should be dealt with bylaw. So for that, I believe this should be passed.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Booth?
Through you, your worship, yes, listening to everybody here today, I'd like to defer this, and the reason being is, Krista and Eleanor asked that, some people that weren't able to speak today, plus some more information that we're looking at, and I'm really looking at section number C in this bylaw that talks about notwithstanding section 4.37, an accessory shipping container would now be permitted and is included as floor area, blah, blah, blah. In previous discussions I've had with the chief building officer months ago about people down the street that were asking about shipping containers, he informed me that shipping containers that are 8 by 20 are allowed now on your property, but anything bigger than 20 feet is not technically supposed to be allowed on your property. And that the reason being is the province has changed now that you can have a shed that's 160 feet. And what a lot of people are doing now is it's cheaper for you to buy a shipping container that's 8 by 20 and put it on your property than it is now to build a nice shed, right? So I think before we pass this and we make a RR71 special exception or whatever, I think it's only incumbent upon us as to be able to listen to everybody and get some more information before we vote on this.
Thank you. Any comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
That would be my position as well, Mayor Lowell. There's just too many questions that I have. There are people that needed more time to maybe appear. There are more documents maybe they wanted to work on. So I don't think it would be in the best interest of everyone involved to move it. So I would also like to see this deferred. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Neill.
I'm also not prepared to support at this point. I have some questions and would like far more information about what it means for a home industry versus an industrial commercial zoning versus a home occupation. I think that it is not only relevant to this, it's relevant to how we proceed as a municipality on these rural properties. And if and it's an interesting situation because sometimes a business will start out to meet criteria for things such as a home occupation. But then as the business grows, which this appears to be one of those circumstances, it overgrows where it's located and the zoning that's allowed there. So I think there's some there's much bigger questions. And one other thing I would like to note from the discussion today, when Ben talked about not recognizing or realizing what the rules around hobby farms, I think that is some information that would be pertinent, not just to Diana and Ben, but to the general public on what is a hobby farm and what do I need to do to have a compliant hobby farm. So I think that's information maybe for the general public, whereas as a counselor, I really do want to understand those questions around industry in a rural zone.
Just to comment a little bit more on that, I think that's what Deputy Mayor Stoller was mentioning too, when she's thinking, when she was young, these are the rules that you had to go for farming. Well, they are changing a lot. I'm sure that Tracy will be able to support me in that, but it's not only the nutrients, but setbacks and this, that, and the other things that are changing all along with the farm. Go ahead, Councilor Neal.
Right, and I think for hobby farms, it becomes an interesting dynamic because if you're big enough to be part of the Federation of Agriculture, the Christian Farmers Association, either one of those, you are receiving all sorts of information and training. So I certainly know my brother-in-laws who are farming are well aware of all of these nutrient management requirements, as opposed to a hobby farm where, you know, how many cows can you have in 5 acres or goats or anything else? Those are questions. And there's not an association where they are receiving this information from.
Go ahead, Councilor Indy.
Mayor. So all your questions that you've just asked right now, Tracy has answered in the report already. Right, she's answered about the CTN, she's answered about the hobby farm, right, she's answered about the zoning. Well, those are all answered. Again, all the complaints are bylaw complaints. They're not zoning, and they're not part of what is going on. So, to me, it's just, and we've already done this in a couple different places. We've had the same issue. Somebody wants to start a business, neighbors complain, Tracy puts the paperwork together, talk to the neighbors, we talk to the owners, get things straightened out, and life goes on. So we might be putting ourselves in a little bit of a peril because we've already done this a few times, probably multiple times. So let Tracy do her work, let the site plan get done, let them do some of the things around this property that the neighbors would like to see done, and move on.
All right, go ahead, Catherine.
I would like to respectfully disagree. I am left with questions around what's a home business, a home industry versus a home occupation. When does this need to go and meet standards of commercial? And I agree to some point that sure, we're going to address some of these issues within the site plan, but this is the second time where we have had someone start a business that is not allowed, come in, say they're going to do things, not necessarily do, and I don't know, I'm sure they'll do everything, but what happens if the business continues to grow? I mean, it has grown and grown and grown. It's logical that it's going to continue to grow. And also, I mean, I think there's other issues in this one. Instead of getting a second building, which would require a permit, we've now got, what, a dozen little buildings that don't require permits. Well, do we not have any rules around how many little buildings you can put? And if we don't have any rules, shouldn't we probably have a rule around that? So I think there are some things about how we want to allow commercial and how big of a commercial development to happen in our rural areas. I think this does require quite a bit of thought.
And I'll make a quick comment on that. And I recall one property that we had the issue with. It did take 2 or 3 times, so good discussion and, pardon me,
Bit back and forth.
been back and forth and negotiating, and we were able to achieve what we needed to do. And I think that's what we all should try to do. Okay, Mr. Booth, you had a second motion. Do you want to change that or?
Well, we can vote on it, and if it gets voted down, then I'll make a motion that we deferred, or Mike can agree to the defer.
No, we're gonna get the proper explanation.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if this motion is voted on and fails, it does not come back, it needs to be a motion to reconsider. So at this point, based on the conversation around the table, if the will of council is to defer the motion to get more information, that would be your best foot, because you're not making this decision today. You're just delaying that decision until you get the information that you can.
If so, I'd like to make a motion for an amendment that it be deferred until further information can be provided.
So Greg's made the motion that we defer. Need a seconder for that. Seconded by Councilor O'Neill. Further discussion? Yeah. Just a clarification.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just as a matter of clarity, there's been a lot of discussion in terms of why we're deferring. Is it to allow additional public input through another public meeting, or is it for staff to bring back additional information based on Kansas questions?
I would say both, because Deputy Mayor mentioned, and I forgot that there was some members that didn't get a chance to properly research it and everything, and maybe there's other neighbors that want to speak and they didn't get the opportunity, so information coming back to us from other neighbors and that, and maybe information that we can find out more. Questions were asked by the deputy mayor about how many times has bylaw been there, and is there any other infractions, and I'd like the question asked to the building official about the sea cans and that, to find out whether that's true or not, or whatever.
We have a request of the treasurer to make a comment.
Just a point of clarification, in the public meeting notice that goes out, it provides the opportunity for written submissions. We did receive written submissions from 5 other individuals, which was noted in the report. We, in lieu of having a formal public meeting, we could provide a letter indicating if anybody wants to speak that they could register as a delegation. At the next meeting, we could provide a letter in advance so that people have time to prepare, and given the mail strike, we could hand deliver those letters. Or not the mail strike, but I've heard the notices haven't been delivered within a week, so in this instance, maybe we can hand deliver letters to the immediate neighbors, which I expect already had provided submissions. Thank you.
Sounds true.
And if I could add, yes, I would like some further information on the difference and the rules around home occupation versus home industry, and what zoning implications there are for that.
Mike?
You, Mayor, is that something that Tracy can answer right now?
Can you answer that now?
Yes, through the mayor, just to clarify the difference between home occupation and home industry. So a home occupation is typically like an office type use that would be within the home. So like a practitioner, like somebody who's doing like chiropractic or some hairdresser or something of that nature. A home industry is an industrial type business that is conducted by a resident who lives in the home and is permitted within the accessory building. So there both noted as permitted uses in the official plan. It is not permitted as of right in the rural residential zone, which is why the applicant has made the request to permit it. The use is consistent with the official plan, which has allowed for the zoning amendment request.
So, are there any rules for a home industry that says at this point, like it can only be this big, or you can only operate at this scale? Because we've watched this, I drive by it frequently, it is a growing business, it keeps growing and growing and growing, and that's part of where the conflict is this, where it's growing to this scale that it has, and that number of outbuildings that it has. Like, and I know that we're asking for a site plan, which is fine, but I still don't have in my own mind a clear understanding of, can anyone just decide that, gosh, I want to run a business on my property and I'll start running it and I'll just run it for however long I run it. And then if the neighbors complain, then I'll go and ask permission for it. And I mean, this is something that does happen in multiple circumstances. And it's something we've said we want to not have the norm here anymore. And yet it is our norm still, apparently, if we just say we're going to do that side of it.
Yes, through the mayor. So when looking at the amending bylaw, the use is proposed to be permitted in accordance with specific regulations that are already written in the zoning bylaw that apply to home industries. And I can go through those regulations. I refer to the sections that would apply, and I can read those out if that would be helpful. So when you look at the amending bylaw, it states that in addition to the permitted uses in the rural residential zone, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase, a contractor or a tradesman's yard be permitted within an existing building constructed in accordance with building permit 2022-127. So that recognizes the existing metal building that's built because it is not within the setbacks of the sections that I'm proposing that be applied to the outdoor storage and parking and any other additions that may come in the future. So it has to be, contained to that building and in accordance with section 18.2. And that section says the home industry may be operated or located in any part of an accessory building or on any part of the lot to the applicable provisions of the bylaw. Home industry shall not be permitted to operate in a location in any part of a dwelling on the lot. The total number of home industries shall be limited to one per lot. Where a home industry is conducted on a lot, a separate home occupation shall not be permitted on the same lot. And then we have, so that is section 4.18.2. Then section 4.18.5 states the home industry shall only be permitted on a lot with the following minimum yard and setback provisions. A home industry shall not be permitted to locate in the front yard. The minimum yard requirement for the accessory home industry building or activity, so that includes outdoor storage and parking, has to be 20 meters from any lot line. But there's an additional minimum distance separation from any residential, commercial, or community open space zone of 60 meters. So in addition to the 20 meters, there's a 60-meter setback to the zone boundaries of the residents adjacent to it. And a 30-meter setback to dwellings on another lot. So the sketch that I attached yesterday to the report depicts setback requirements.
Then section 4.18.6 applies. It says signs shall be in accordance with this township sign bylaw. And then 4.18.7 applies, and it states any area used for outdoor storage activity or parking associated with the home industry shall be screened in a manner as to render the materials, items, or activities as not being visible from a public street or road or adjacent properties. Section 4.18.8 is for parking, and it states any vehicles associated with the home industry shall be parked in an area other than a public street or a required front yard. A minimum of 2 parking spaces shall be provided. And then for the sections that of the home industry section that we are not applying, we've included special regulations in the amending bylaw that restricts the operation to the occupant of the dwelling located on the same lot. So the owner of the business has to live in the house. And not more than 4 employees other than the occupants of the dwelling shall be employed. So in addition to the owner, there could be 4 other employees. So that scopes the scale. And then there's a regulation proposed for not more than 165 meters square floor area for all accessory buildings and structures to be devoted to the contractors or tradesmen's yards. So that addresses the current metal building, the size of the shipping container, and about 28 meter square addition. So the regulations are scoping the size of the buildings already. And then we've included a regulation that states for the regulations for shipping containers apply. I'm just going to go to that section. So any shipping containers would be included in the floor area restriction, so they wouldn't be allowed to have more than 165 meters square. And is subject to section 4.37.4, which states shipping containers shall only be permitted in the rear yard and shall not be permitted in a required parking area. So the 2 parking space requirements can be covered by a shipping container. The 4.37.5 shipping containers shall be screened from the road frontage and adjacent buildings. 4.37.8 shipping containers. I believe that's a typo. Yes, it's not a typo, apologies. The minimum lot area has to be 0.4 hectares an acre, which it is. A maximum of 1 shipping container is permitted. And the maximum area is 51 meters square. So the regulations don't speak to length of shipping containers, it speaks to area. And the last regulation in section 4.37.9, shipping containers shall not be used for human habitation, display, advertising, screening, or fencing. So they can't use that shipping container to screen from the adjacent properties. There will have to be screening material imposed, which would be addressed through a site plan application. I hope that helps to clarify. Thank you.
For you, Eric. Thank you for hopefully that saves another meeting. So I would say that Tracy's answered all your questions. And again, all the other ones are bylaws. So I say we got bylaw deal with those issues, that the owner work with Tracy on a site plan and mitigate some of those issues that the neighbors have and move on.
Or doesn't matter.
Through your mayor Lobo to our planner, Tracy, is this going to inhibit the Mr. Martin from doing his business if we deferred it, say, for a month?
I would expect that if there's an enforcement complaint, if he's showing that he's working towards it, rectifying the situation, then that would, I expect, be acceptable. We can confirm with the CAO on that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
To you, your worship. So if I'm understanding right, now, Tracy, they are zoned rural residential, which does not include scoping size of outside buildings. From what I heard from Eleanor and her thing saying that if you're running a rural residential, you're running like a hairdresser thing in your house or a tax thing, this or that. It doesn't include scoping and size of buildings and things like that, and that's what we're trying to add here, right?
That's correct. So the home occupation permissions are not related to the home industry use. So the proposed bylaw adds regulatory framework to deal with the unobtrusive aspect noted in the official plan. So the requirements for the size restriction, the screening, if this bylaw got passed and they came back and wanted to expand beyond that, they'd need to come back for another zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, so my point being, Mr. Ainsworth, is that it's not just a bylaw thing. Right now, we're talking about they're not meeting the zoning. They're not meeting, and it's like Mary Catherine said, is that this business has grown and grown, and it's not just outside of the house anymore. And we're actually talking now about that we're changing it so that he can be included in it. So it's not just an idea of the bylaw officer going there, just my point.
I think we're gonna be stuck on here if we don't keep moving on, and, I think we have a mover in the seconder to defer. Yeah, it's moved by Councillor Booth and seconded by Deputy Mayor.
Seconded by Andrew Catherine.
Was seconded by Mary Catherine, sorry about that. So I'm gonna call a vote. All in favor of deferring? That motion's carried. Thank you, Tracy.
Mayor Lobo, may I ask when it will be deferred to?
I'm hoping we can do it at the next planning meeting. Is that possible? Go ahead, Tracy.
I expect most of the information already in the report, so I can highlight those points. We do have a large agenda on the next meeting.
I think if you highlighted to us what you wanted to point out, that's all we need. Because there has been a lot of information up to today. So if you can give us that information again, to the next planning meeting, then we'll move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have confirming bylaw 52-2025, confirming bylaw 2025-0624, the bylaw number 52-2025 being a bylaw to adopt the proceedings of the municipal planning / regular council meeting held on June 24th, 2025, and to authorize its execution given the first, second, and third reading and finally passed on the 24th day of June 2025. Move in second. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion is carried. Motion to adjourn that the municipal planning / regular council meeting held on June 24th, 2025, and adjourned at 12:20 p.m. Mover seconder, moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking with us.